Hello. Well, today is September the 11th, 2006. 5 years from that infamous day that changed the way we looked at the world and changed the way the world looked at us. It was the beginning of a lot of things. The days that followed, America came together. The world stood with America. And because there was such a stark contrast between good and evil, the attacker and the victim. And it was very clear in that day that we had been attacked. Since that day, it seems like there's been such a tremendous pressure inside and outside of tearing down, of muddying the waters, of causing things that seem to be so clear to make it obscured. We've had everyone blamed, from the president to Israel to just all kinds of conspiracy theories. And it's incredible to consider, if you really think back on that day, what were you doing that day? I actually was headed to a prayer meeting I was invited to. A friend of mine, Dennis Davis, who pastors in New Hebron, Mississippi, had called myself and 4 or 5 other pastors in the area and said, I just feel like we need to get together and pray. And I was headed to that prayer meeting when I walked into RB's gas station there in Hazelhurst, Mississippi. And I walked into the store, got something to drink, and as I was about to pay for it, there was a little small television in the corner on the counter, and there's 3 or 4 people behind the counter looking at the screen. And I saw the screen, and someone said, someone has flown a small Cessna airplane into a building in New York. It had just happened. And they were showing a picture of it on the screen. It was a news channel. And so I got my drink and drove. And when we reached the point and the time to pray, really, there were virtually no details. No, we did not know what had happened. We simply were gathered together because of a pastor friend had a burden on his heart that we needed to pray. And so we prayed. We had good prayer, a good spirit of the Lord, and a sense of peace. And so I left there, and as I was leaving, probably about 10 o'clock in the morning, I turned on the radio, and we began to understand the magnitude of the tragedy that was unfolding on that day. Not one plane, but multiple planes began to strike and bring carnage and tragedy in multitude of forms on that day. And the images impacted us so greatly. It was my son's birthday, my oldest son, Keaton. He was born on 9/11 of 96. So he's 5 years old that day. He was going to have his 5-year-old birthday, and we gathered together at my wife's parents' house, and to have a birthday party. But really, there wasn't a whole lot of partying that day. We ate the cake and opened the presents, but we were all focused on what was taking place, and the buildings falling, and the explosions, and the carnage, and the tragedy, and the sorrow, the questions, and the speculation. And the days that followed that day, America came together. Political parties seemed to be erased, and everyone stood together and prayed together and hoped together for a better day. It was just a few months ago that in London they thwarted a similar design and desire to bring carnage in America. Multiple planes were to be blown up over American cities. But because of, I think, the grace of God, it was stopped. But if those attacks would have happened just 2 or 3 months ago, if they would have happened, today we would still be praying in the church, and we would all be trying to figure out the best way to live our lives. Many have forgotten since 5 years ago the promises they made, and the commitments they made, and the steps toward righteousness that they began to make. Because time has a way of causing us to forget the grace of God and forget the goodness of God, and we begin to live our lives. No matter the price of gas, we keep driving. No matter the state of the economy, we still eat and we still have a job, and we continue to live our lives, and often we live our lives without a conscience of God. But maybe the coverage that is going on today on the radios and the televisions and all kinds of videos on the internet reminding us of a tragedy that turned the hearts of America, if but for a moment, to God. And maybe we might remember as a collective body, as Christians, remember the sense of urgency. The Lord is coming back. Something I've been thinking about a lot. I had a conversation the other day with a friend of mine, and he was talking about his road of conversion. And I asked him, I said, what was the thing that happened that caused you to begin to believe and dedicate your life to the Lord? He said, I realized that if the Lord came, I wasn't ready, and I didn't want to go to hell. And I think that sometimes as Christians, we don't understand that truly the Lord could come even now. If not in the eastern sky with Gabriel blowing the trumpet, we could go right now. Our heart could stop beating. Our car could veer. Someone could run over us. So many things could happen, and in a moment we would be gone. But are we ready? Are we ready to make that journey that we will not have an opportunity to retrace? I want to be right. I want to be ready, and I want to help everyone that I come in contact with, not just to remember the event of 9/11, but remember the commitment that many people made. And I want to recommit myself, recommit my heart, my mind, my life to keeping the main thing, and understanding that the Lord really could come. Whether one way or the other, I want to be ready. I want my heart to be right. And on this 9/11, 5 years later, planes may not have crashed. Things may seem to be in turmoil in other places, but we can have peace inside of our heart and do what we know God has called us to do. God bless you. Visit my website, www.newbirth.us.